Thirsty Thursday, but on a Monday this time. It's we're right here. We're back. It's Dynasty League football. It's the 32 team series where we're previewing every single team in the NFL. It's exciting time to be doing it because we got the training camps all live. Everybody is, starting to get in full pads. Like, it's starting to look like real football out there. And we're here. We're headed to South Beach to break down this Miami Dolphins team. And man, when I started looking through this, there is a lot to talk about with this team. So, as always, I invite some really smart football people to help me break this down. And as you can see, I got somebody I'm going to introduce you to here in just 1 minute to help me do just that. Man, the chat is fired up already to talk about some Dolphins. Aaron's in here. He's been waiting for this one. Corey, he's in here as well, ready to talk about. So I'm excited, Troy. Troy is the one that's going to help me break on the Dolphins, of course, right? Like I said, King of Thirsty Thursday. He does a lot of different things. He's a contributor to Football Guys. He's a co-host of the FF Confidential, co-host of the Football Guys Mailbag Show. He's right here. He's with us. He's Troy King. Troy, how's it going?
Man, it's going great, Cal. That's one hell of an introduction. I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of things. You already said everything I was going to say. So, yeah, this is me. And you can find me at T King Mode, on Twitter, TikTok, whatever you like to, do your social media. Man,
we already got Patriots fans hating in the chat.
Oh my God, gross. Get him out of here.
Chev's in here, excited to see Jordan. Yo. Jordan wants you to name 5 healthy wide receiver or tight ends that are currently on the roster, which is a task.
I can't. I don't think I can. I don't think that's possible.
Leads us into the first question, I think, when we talk about the storylines and camp battles. I mean, that's the wide receiver position, tight end position. I mean, injuries are running amok. I mean, that's certainly part of it. But what are you paying attention to when in Dolphins camp right now?
Man, I'm kind of what you alluded to. I'm seeing who's healthy. But the standout, look, he already beat me to it, Mike. It's Albert Wilson is the wide receiver 1. It's shocking because obviously, those who aren't familiar with Albert Wilson, we originally got him from the Chiefs. He's a speedy wide receiver. He's great. He's great with yards after the catch, but he's been injury prone, unfortunately. I wouldn't say injury prone. I don't like that term, but he has been injured a lot. I would say that he keeps getting injured. So take it as you will. So now that he is actually, showing out in camp, it's, it's a little bit interesting, a little bit exciting. And I want him to be a thing. I will mention the fact that if all of our wide receivers are healthy, I think it's going to be hard to rely on Albert Wilson on a week-to-week basis. Maybe somebody you pick on the last round of best ball or a deep dynasty stash if you're in a deep league. But I'm liking what I hear so far about Albert Wilson.
It's been exciting to see his connection with Tua. And, I think you mentioned the if about the health of the Dolphins wide receivers. And that's the question when you bring in Will Fuller, you bring in Jalen Waddle, who was explosive, but, dealt with some injuries last year. Albert Wilson, Devontae Parker. I mean, Preston Williams. It's almost like they've all got a certain amount of history, right?
You're right. And I would keep saying, I made a joke I made a sad joke because I love Preston Williams, but his nickname is about to be Pupless Preston because this man, he's another one that unfortunately he played some games last year, and I feel like when he's on the field, he makes plays and you can see that talent. But for whatever reason, again, unfortunately, he's one of those, guys that keeps getting injured. And Mike Gesicki has been the beneficiary of that in the past, right? But Devontae Parker, he's on the PUP list, but I see he's still practicing though. He's practicing, but he's on the PUP list. So, I got some things to say about Mr. Parker a little bit later in the show. But look, I'm a fan of our whole wide receiver core. Will Fuller, he's banged up with an injury. Waddle, he's been practicing, but he's still recovering from his ankle surgery that he just recently had. So there's a lot going on with our receivers. I just want, because last year we dealt with wide receiver injuries throughout the entire season. And I think that's one of the reasons why our offense struggled. So, it's still training camp. It's still early, but I'm hoping things turn around quickly.
Yeah, I love that. And so, because the wide receiver room, speaking of turnaround, the turnover in that has been, pretty huge. And even in terms of trying to build this team around Tua. Now, you could make the case, obviously, that the majority of the offseason, the news was spent around trying to acquire Deshaun Watson. But I mean, you acquire Deshaun Watson if you're 29 teams in the NFL, right? Like there's you're interested. But every other move has seemed to be that they want to build around Tua. Like they get rid of the old offensive coordinator. They're using this dual role that they've got. They got rid of Ryan Fitzpatrick, who they could have re-signed. They didn't. He was a captain on the team. He's gone. Kind of almost saying like, hey, Tua, this is your team. We're still, for some reason, not completely done with the rumors of Deshaun Watson. What does that say to you? Like, do you think this team believes in him, or do you think they don't? Are they sending mixed messages? What's going on?
I believe that the Dolphins are very confident in Tua. I believe that all the moves they made up to this point are an endorsement about Tua, and obviously the camp reports he seems to be understanding the offense. I've seen, I believe Omar Kelly he's a Dolphins beat reporter. I think he mentioned the fact that he has like a mastery over the offense or something along those lines. So to me, those are very, very encouraging reports. But just kind of like you said, 29 teams in the NFL are going to want Deshaun Watson, right? Obviously he's just off the field drama aside, in terms of the NFL talent, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So it's a scenario where, like, if he were, let's say hypothetically, he were to go on the Dolphins, we'd be Super Bowl contenders, right? With our passing options, with our running backs. Gaskin obviously had a stellar season last year with our solid defense. Like, that's what would happen. So obviously, I think any organization is going to do their homework in terms of that. But obviously, it's much cheaper to just, and obviously more cost effective, I think it's a better strategy just to ride with Tua, see what he can do. And again, there's a lot of things that are going against him last year. He clearly had his struggles, but I believe the team believes in him, and I'm excited for year 2 for him.
You know how Jeff Bell kind of every day he kind of pokes fun at the hot take machine and will say things like, "Oh, I think Derrick Henry's good," or whatever he says. Yeah. This is kind of like Jordan's impression of Jeff. I still think the Miami wide receiver core is better than New England. Like, of course it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm assuming what he means, like, all are injured because all our other receivers are injured. It's still better. I'm guessing that's what he's referring to. But it's like, look, man. New England's wide receivers are, Kendrick Bourne, Nelson Aguilar. Those are the top receivers, right? And yeah, it's not great.
Yeah, not a lot of inspiration there for sure. But we'll poke back at Mike, who's in there in the comments trying to give you a hard time, right? So
exactly.
Before we get into the fantasy talk, like, obviously the big rumors when you start looking into the Dolphins have to do with Xavier Howard and him, and possibly being traded. Like, do you think he lines up on day one with this team?
So I think there was actually, recent reports about how he's open to making a deal, right? As a Dolphins fan, I want the Dolphins to keep Xavier Howard, right? He's already, if not the highest paid, one of the highest paid cornerbacks in the league. We made him the highest a couple years ago. I know he believes he outperformed his contract, which, look, he had an amazing, I think he had like 10 interceptions last year, right? So I believe that, I am very optimistic that the Dolphins can make a deal to keep him. But in terms of just, the Dolphins are a business. They're a business organization. It's probably more cost effective to trade him and get a bunch of draft picks, right? To get a haul. The Dolphins obviously have been known for that the past couple of years, trading players, getting a haul for them, getting first round picks. Unfortunately, with Minkah Fitzpatrick is the most recent example that I can think of where I was hurt that we traded him, as a stellar safety, and we traded him to the Steelers. We got a haul back for him, and I wouldn't be surprised if they went the same direction with Xavier Howard. I'm hoping they don't do that because obviously Xavier Howard's our best defensive player, but I'll say I'm optimistic, but I wouldn't be surprised if they trade him.
Let's get into some of the fantasy talk here, and let's talk about people who might be undervalued on this Dolphins team. And there's definitely some good candidates. I think, people that, maybe overlooking some of these Dolphins players, because I don't know that everybody has a lot of trust in the offense. What do you think? Who do you think we're undervaluing?
2 guys, Devontae Parker and Malcolm Brown. I'll say that. So I'll start off with Devontae Parker. So, obviously he's on the PUP list right now, but if, let's say, all the wide receivers are healthy, I think Parker, one, he's going the latest amongst everyone. So that's one of the reasons. Is
Mm-hmm.
also is that I believe that Parker is going to be the possession receiver. So I wouldn't be surprised if Parker was, I would say, the most targeted receiver, right? I'm not going to say that I believe that, Fuller and Waddle obviously have more upside just because of the type of receivers they are. But
Mm-hmm.
Parker, I believe, is going to benefit from the lighter coverage, right? Because defenses are going to be worried about Will Fuller and Jalen Waddle, right? Those are what I believe that those are going to be their focuses. And because of that, Parker's used to being the wide receiver one on the team. So
Mm-hmm.
you're going from being the wide receiver one in terms of also wide receiver one coverage to getting the least amount of coverage from defenses. That's obviously going to help. And just where he plays, right? He's most likely going to be playing like the X, I'm assuming, or they might move him around, but at the same time, I believe that he's going to be, the wide receiver that's going to be converting the first downs. Yes, Waddle's going to be the yak monster. You're going to throw him short. He could go deep. You can use him all over the field. But
Mm-hmm.
to me, I feel like Waddle's one of those players that he's going to hit. He's great for best ball. He's great for upside. And obviously, it's really too early to tell. We're still in training camp, but I think he might be it would be hard to tell when to start him, right? He's one of those wide receivers that I'm a little bit worried about. And Will Fuller, he could do more than just go deep, but they're probably going to be using him a lot deep just because he's so good at it. So
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons I believe Parker. And then obviously last year, I think he's being really discounted last year because he didn't have a great season, but the overall offense didn't have a great season. So I'm not going to really blame Parker, and he dealt with a lot of injuries, right? But obviously 2 years
Mm-hmm.
ago, he was a wide receiver one. So has he diminished that much from 2 years ago? I don't believe so. So, and again, in this situation, I believe that he's undervalued. And Malcolm Brown. So the obviously Gaskin, a lot of people believe that they were going to draft a running back. Dolphins
Mm-hmm.
fans, including me, right? I thought it was going to be Najee. I thought it was going to be Javonte Williams. And before that, I thought they're going to bring a free agent. Obviously, there's the Aaron Jones rumors. There's Chris Carson. There are all these rumors about, okay, like there's no way Gaskin is going to be an RB1. And Dolphins already proved to you that, Gaskin's going to be the lead back. But one thing about Gaskin is that he's about like 200 or so, but he's not a big body running back. And one of the areas he struggled in last year, probably the only area he struggled in, was on the goal line, right? He didn't convert goal line carries, but he did everything else. So they brought in Malcolm Brown from the Rams, who we saw in relief of Todd Gurley. When Todd Gurley wasn't there, so years when Todd Gurley was there as well as last year. He's a very serviceable back. Is he great? No. But does he suck? Absolutely not. Like Malcolm Brown was used, especially on the goal line. He was then talk about, and I have a feeling he's going to be a touchdown vulture. Like I would not be surprised if they use that. And I think that he's going to be what they wanted Jordan Howard to be, right? Jordan Howard, we saw a couple games where he had like 2 yards and 2 touchdowns. But Malcolm Brown is going to be better than that, right? He's going to be using short yardage. He'll be using the goal line. So to me, again, last round of your best ball. And also last point is that Gaskin, he was used a lot last season, right? Huge, used like a true workhorse, but we saw him get injured, right? So I think he's still going to have the vast majority of the running back shares, but they're going to want to work in some other guys. And I believe that Malcolm Brown is going to be the RB2 on that offense.
I love that you said that because actually just a couple weeks ago, talking to your coworker there, Matt Waldman, he thought Malcolm Brown was going to take over as the lead back on this team. That was pretty bold.
I'm not.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody really agrees with that. But his main thing was like, hey, Malcolm Brown's not doing anything special. But there's something about Malcolm Brown where everywhere he goes seems like he gets the coach's trust. Like it's just one of those guys that, we like the explosiveness, the sizzle, like somebody that's going to do, be able to break a long one. And coaches kind of want a guy that's going to like just run the play as it's called and, don't fumble the ball, those sort of things. And it seems like Malcolm Brown always ends up in a bigger role than we expect or want him to. So I love that you said that. That's a really good point. And he certainly, that opportunity, like you said, could present itself. Myles Gaskin, we're all worried about Chase Edmond. I was breaking down the Cardinals a couple shows ago, and the exact same size as Myles Gaskin, exact same size listed at. So really good. I love both those. Let's talk about bust, though, because there might be people that are being overdrafted, maybe. What do you think? Who do you think maybe we're overvaluing on this team?
I would say that I think I go Fuller has the higher ADP than Waddle. Oh, you want? I'm not even gonna go there. Mike Gesicki. I'm gonna say
Mm.
Mike Gesicki is the bust because one of the things, and I love Mike Gesicki, right? And when I say bust, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being a tight end one because any Joe Schmo could be a tight end one. Let's be honest, but Mike Gesicki, the past 2 seasons, has been a beneficiary of injuries, right? The past 2 seasons. Preston Williams, every time Preston Williams gets hurt, it seems like Mike Gesicki, that's when he becomes really relevant. That's when he starts getting the targets. So not only are you having to forget Preston Williams, now you got Will Fuller and Jalen Waddle. You know what I'm saying? And who
Yeah.
knows with Albert Wilson, right? So now you actually have healthy bodies. And also last year, they were using guys like Adam Shaheen, like, in terms of touchdowns. Like there were tight ends that were vulture and Smythe. They were like these guys were vulturing touchdowns and targets from Gesicki, right? He wasn't extremely targeted. Gesicki was the touchdown leader last year for the Dolphins, but again, it's because everybody else was injured. So I have a feeling that if you're going to be relying on Mike Gesicki, he's going to be like a lot of other tight ends. You're going to need him to score touchdowns because I just don't see where you're going to get the volume from him.
Yeah, I think it's a good call, and it does seem like one of the things that I think is being overlooked right now. Like he was the slot wide receiver last year. He lined up. He had the most snaps out of the slot, according to RotoWire that I'm looking at right now, 444 on the whole team. And so if that's ultimately reliable and that's true, you bring in Will Fuller, you bring in who's going to line up outside, but Parker, who could he has had some experience lining up in the slot. You could maybe want to move him in there. Jalen Waddle has a lot of experience there. He's the kind of guy that, and they did draft Hunter Long, to come in, who's a pretty good receiving tight end too. So maybe the regime isn't quite as sold on him as maybe the player profiler page would make it look.
Yeah, and also
impressive.
Yeah, exactly. And also next year, they can either cut him, they can trade him, they could extend him, but they did, like you mentioned, they did just draft Hunter Long. I don't know how much of an impact Hunter Long makes this season, but in Dynasty, that's the dude you want to stash, right? That's the type of scenario you want to be paying attention to. And obviously, he's a very athletic tight end, very good receiving tight end. So these are things you want to be paying attention to. So you should definitely try to get Hunter Long now because if Mike Gesicki is out the door, Hunter Long's stock is going to go through the roof. So
absolutely. So this next question is, sometimes this question's easy. Like I did the Cardinals earlier, it's obviously Hopkins. I did the Chargers earlier, it's Keenan Allen. With the Dolphins, it's a little bit more of a question on who could lead this team in targets, right? So you kind of mentioned Parker before. Is that who you think is ultimately going to get the most targets?
I think if they're all healthy, I think he's going to get the most targets. And I think it might be controversial in terms of who do I want in fantasy. Again, I still want Jalen Waddle, Fuller. Those are the guys that you want because of the explosive upside. But I'm just trying to think practically, right? I'm just trying to think because, obviously, there's talk about, Jalen Waddle and Tua have chemistry from college, but obviously he has a lot of reps with Parker now too, right? So they've developed that chemistry. So I don't think that could just be ignored. Obviously, all last year when Tua was the starter, whenever, Parker was in the lineup, he's obviously getting targeted and he has that chemistry. And obviously this offseason, they're just solidifying that. So to me, I believe that Parker, and also he's going to be the beneficiary of just weaker coverage. So to me, obviously Tua's going to be looking for, he doesn't necessarily need to force it to Waddle or Fuller, right? And I know that the Dolphins have been practicing this offseason about taking shots down deep. And I just think that having the receivers we have opens up the whole offense, but it also makes it easier for the other receiving options to be open to get targets. And I just believe that Parker, I don't think he's washed yet. I believe that I think that it's going to be somewhere in the middle of 2019 and 2020, right? He's not as bad as he was in 2020, but he's obviously not going to be what he was in 2019. He's going to be somewhere in the middle. But I believe that Parker, just because I believe he's going to be the possession receiver, he is going to be the most targeted.
I love that you mentioned that because I don't think people realize how good he was in 2019, especially at the end of 2019. Yeah. Like there was a stretch there at the end where he was just literally one of the best wide receivers in football all of a sudden. And it didn't carry over. Like, I don't think people drafting really trusted it. He's still just 28. And I love the point that you made that he's all of a sudden going to have competent other receiving options around him for maybe the first time, right? Like, who's the other best receiver he's played with?
Preston Williams, like in 2019,
Yeah.
I believe it was Preston Williams for a little bit, and then I can't even remember who else it was. Like that's how little help that he had. I think Albert Wilson was there. He got hurt. You know what I'm saying? Jakeem Grant was there. You know, he got hurt. So it's like these are the guys he's been playing with. So now you actually have real receivers, like real top quality receivers. Again, the defense is for all Parker's pretty much career, he was the number one option that they were game planning for. Now you can't do that anymore with Fuller and Jalen Waddle, right? So he's going to be the beneficiary because of that.
Let's go over to the running back. I think it sounds like we're probably thinking this is Myles Gaskin. Assuming health, it should be him, right?
Yeah, I just don't see any scenario where Gaskin isn't the lead rusher, the lead back. Again, last year, I'm not going to make the same mistake last year. Right? Last year, I thought it was Jordan Howard, Matt Breida show. And all of a sudden, Gaskin came out of nowhere. The coaching staff loves Gaskin. I don't think he did anything to lose the coach's trust. And, again, he obviously injured for a little bit. Then last year, he won fantasy leagues for us. At least for me, he balled out, when he came back from injury. So to me, I think Gaskin definitely does. I mean, well, let's see with Matt Wallman, if he's right about Malcolm Brown. I don't believe so, but I think it's the Gaskin show.
Let's have the Tua conversation, because I think that's maybe the most interesting thing about this team and like what we expect from him, right? Because what we saw out of him last year, I think you have to look at it and say, like, you understand the organization and maybe fantasy owners having some hesitancy for him, right? Like, he came into the draft last year. You were expecting him to be way better. Maybe he wasn't fully healthy. Maybe that's what we're going with. Maybe Chan Gailey wasn't the best offensive coordinator. Those are typically the things where I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. Where do you lean on that? Like, how much do you believe in him? And like, where are you ranking him in terms, like, just 2021? Where would you have Tua ranked?
I have him around QB 20. So like in one QB leagues, I'm not going to rely on Tua as a starter, right? But I believe, and I keep comping Tua to, I believe he's like a Kirk Cousins. I believe he's somebody that he could win you some weeks, but I wouldn't want to rely on him. He's not going to be a QB1 every single week. He's not going to throw for 300 yards for 3 touchdowns every week. I don't believe that Tua is that type of quarterback. And you don't need him to be that type of quarterback, right? He's not going to be a Justin Herbert. And I'm very confident in just what, obviously the camp reports, but what the options that he has, right? I just believe that Tua, I want to say he's going to be more than a game manager, right? I don't think he's just going to play not to lose the game. I think he's more talented than that. So yeah, last year the offense was extremely conservative, right? And then I believe it was
extremely.
I think Eric Rowe actually came out today and they were interviewing him, the Dolphins cornerback. And they were mentioning to him, like, he mentioned how, like, the offense was conservative. They did a bunch of bubbles, there's bubble screens and slants, right? That was, like, the whole offense. Like, they didn't trust Tua. I don't know if because of injury. I don't know if they just didn't want him to lose the game. And I think that's where unfortunately, that's where the offense stalled out a lot, because they were they were running the offense not to lose. And now I believe this year they're actually going to be running the offense like you're trying to actually win, because I think that was our weak spot. And and again, there's the receivers, there was the play calling, there was him coming off the injury. So there's definitely a lot of factors that played into it. But I am very confident in Tua, and obviously the training camp reports are encouraging. And then I believe, look, if he has his 3 healthy receivers, and his offensive line is going to be more experienced too. His offensive line was full of rookies last year. So to me, I'm excited about him. I'm confident in him. But again, it's Superflex. Superflex is the league. You should be trying to buy Tua now, because once he starts balling out, his value is going to go up. I believe right now his value is at a very fair price, because a lot of people are down on him. But in one QB leagues, people might rely on him as like a streaming quarterback. So, but I think QB 20, in my opinion, is fair.
Yeah, let's see. And this is QB 17 in DLF's most recent ADP. So that's That's below Matt Stafford in terms of dynasty. Like he's got 10 years on Matt Stafford. It seems to me like I'm in dynasty. It seems like a better investment to me, even though Matt Stafford might have a better 2021. I'm not sure. How do you feel about that?
Oh no, I agree. When I say QB 20, I should have clarified. That was my redraft ranking.
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, I believe that here's the thing, right? With Matt Stafford, he's going to be put ahead of Tua just because of the offense. He's older, but I think some people are wondering, how long Tua is going to be the quarterback for, right? Because if he struggles this year, and if he looks like he did last year, then there's a good chance they'll move on from him. But all you're looking for is significant improvement, right? So as long as you see significant improvement from Tua this year, I believe they're going to ride with him, at least for like the next year or two. But if he struggles like he did last year, now I don't expect them to use Jacoby Brissett like they did Ryan Fitzpatrick. Right. If you don't see the progress, then obviously, just like any organization, you got to think about your future and move on.
Yeah, Monty with the point here with Tua very feeling that like basically he's going to be either good or he's going to crash. Like there's not really an in between. But I feel like crashing for him is like he's too conservative. Like he's what we saw last year where he's checking down a lot more than he was. I like the reports where he seems to be pushing the ball down the field. There was a stretch there a couple of days ago where every 5 minutes I felt like I was getting an alert that he would have a long bomb to Albert Wilson or somebody else. And that's what you want to see out of him. You want to see him doing those sort of pushing the ball down the field. We talked a little bit about Preston Williams. The main concern, obviously, is health, right, Troy?
Yeah, and that's really what it's all about. And then also just opportunity. It's opportunity because at best, he's the fourth or fifth receiving option on the team. And now Albert Wilson's balling out. So you're almost at 6 now. You're flirting with 5, 6. So I'm a huge Preston Williams fan, but to me, he has a huge uphill battle, and obviously I've seen a lot of highlights of Jakeem Grant. Somehow, some reason they're still using him, right? Like this 5'7" Jakeem Grant, he's still somehow in all these Dolphins highlights I see from training camp. So
yeah,
I don't know. I just feel like in Preston, he's obviously on the pup, right? So the longer he's out and not able to play and perform, there's a better chance for these other wide receivers to take his place. So the best that he's really is a deep, deep dynasty stash, but he's not someone that's on my radar at all for fantasy right now.
Monty double dips here. It says talk about the Parker narrative that we talked about him, having other weapons around him and coverage not necessarily being completely on him. Sneaky big upside wide receiver 3, similar to Antonio Brown.
Yeah, I mean, I think Antonio Brown has as much bigger upside just because of the offense he's in and just he's Antonio Brown. But that's my point, right? And I just think that some people they have take lock on somebody and they refuse to look at any value, right? Some people Devontae Parker, disgusting. I'm never going to draft him, right? I'm completely off, and I don't feel like you should really be like that for anyone in fantasy, right? At some point, there's a value. At some point, you have to look at the situation with clear eyes and think to yourself, okay, how can Devontae Parker be of a value? And he's not going to be a wide receiver 1. He's probably not going to be a high-end wide receiver 2. And where he's going in the draft, you're not drafting wide receiver 1s, wide receiver 2s. You obviously want to find the most upside, but sometimes you're looking for the floor play. And I believe that Devontae Parker is going to be the floor play in this scenario.
We had this comment earlier from Mike, who is proclaiming that the Dolphins are going to be the 3rd place team in the NFL, or does he mean in the NFC East? I'm not sure what he was trying to refer to there.
He meant in the AFC. He meant in the AFC East because I've been on shows with him and he said the same thing. But,
yeah.
I say that. Look, I think we got 2nd. I think we have 2nd locked up.
What do you think this team's record is? So 17-game season, 10-6 last year. What do you think 2021 has in store?
I say we go 10-7. I feel like that's a very fair, because I think that, the Jets are obviously on the rise. I think we're better than them. The Patriots, I think the defense is what I'm worried about with the Patriots, because a lot of their players opted out last year. So a lot of them are returning. They obviously get Van Noy back from us because we didn't want to pay him. So I believe the defense is going to be a lot more solid than just a couple of years ago. They're the best defense in the league, right? So that's something I need to be concerned about. But I'm not afraid enough of the offense to put them ahead of the Dolphins. And the Bills are just the Bills. Like I wish I could be homer enough to be like, nah, we're winning division, but I gotta be realistic. We're not beating the Bills. At least like not 2 games in a row. Maybe we can steal one, but I say that we come second in the division.
I love the coaching staff on the team. It seems like there's a lot of promise that, you know, the team is going to continue to rise. I mean, good 2 years, I would say, first 2 years here for the Dolphins under the head coach whose name is slipping me for some reason.
Brian Flores.
Brian Flores. Yeah, I knew it was Brian, but I wanted to say Kelly, and I'm like, no, that's not right. Not Brian Kelly. So Flores, yeah, like this year, kind of, you almost want to see them make a little bit more of a push than they've made, though, right? Like year 3, if he's kind of in the same middle part, like, are you going to start to lose a little confidence?
Well, here's the thing, not really, because when he first joined the Dolphins, like I believe we were going to leave like 2 games, right? We won 5 games and we were horrid. It was like Ryan Fitzpatrick was our leading rusher that year, right? Because our offense was so horrible. So that's why I'm like, and then we were relying guys like Patrick Laird and things like that, right? It was completely embarrassing. So he first came in, we won 5 games. Last year, you know, we were 1 game away from making the playoffs, right? Obviously, the last game, the Bills completely destroyed us. It was no contest. So, and obviously, you know, you're dealing with, you know, a rookie quarterback. So to me, I think Brian Flores, it was just the moves he made. He has a very, very long leash. I say that if we just completely suck, then yeah, everything obviously needs to be reevaluated, but I don't see that happening. I think that Dolphins are going to end up being a wild card team. You know, just like I mentioned, I think the Bills win the division, but I believe that we can, you know, have a better record than a lot of other teams in the AFC. So I believe we're going to be a wild card team.
That's what I'm wanting to see as well. I want to see that step forward from Tua. I want to see, you know, I want to see them make a push, get into the playoffs, and start to get that ascent that you want to see. Read a comment that he said that the GM feels like the team is about 75% to where he wants them to be. So still growing, still improving. People do kind of forget about the bottom dropping out the way that it did a couple of years ago. So Troy, I appreciate you joining me, man. Always fun to hang out with you, talk about the Dolphins. Anything else that you got coming up that you want to promote?
No, I will say that, you know, like you said at the beginning of the show, I'm one of the co-hosts of the Football Guys Mailbag Show. We air every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Dave Kluge and Victoria Geary. So check us out there. As well as I'm one of the co-hosts of Fantasy Football Confidential with Linda G and John Bauer. So you can check us out at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Every other Wednesday during the off season, but in season will be every single week too. And yeah, you'll find articles on footballguys.com. I have a recent DeAndre Hopkins article. I make an argument about why he could be wide receiver 1 overall, as well as I explain why Nick Chubb could be top 5 this season, even in redraft. So go check out the articles on footballguys.com. And yeah, just follow me on Twitter. Just check out more content.
I think John Bauer is the only one of your co-hosts I have not had on this series. So I need to figure out what team he loves and need to try to see if I can get him on here sometime.
He's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan.
Oh, yeah. I had Bloom on that. I had Bloom and Addison Hayes. It would have been nice to add Bauer. I should have. I wish I had known that before. So, yeah, the rest of them you can find on that team preview series. That's right here on the DLF YouTube channel. So if you're not subscribed, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the notifications so you make sure you don't miss anything that we have. Hit the thumbs up button, give a comment. That always helps the algorithm. That's a nice, easy way that doesn't cost you very much to help us out and show support for the show. So for Troy, I really appreciate you joining the show. For DLF, I want to thank everybody for watching, and I will look forward to seeing you on the next show.